Number 5 on your calculus review sheet. So it's got y equals x squared plus 8x plus 3 over the square root of x. So what you have here is a quotient, which is basically a fraction where you have x's in the top and x's in the bottom. So you're going to use quotient rule. Before we begin, though, we never, ever, ever work with radicals. So anytime you see a radical in a calculus problem, rewrite it using fraction exponents, okay? Right now, we're keeping that x to the 1/2 power in the denominator, so you don't need to make the exponent negative because we're not moving it up top. It's just square root of x is x to the 1/2. Okay, quotient rule, derivative of the top, which is 2x plus 8, times the bottom, which is x to the 1/2 power, minus the derivative of the bottom. So the exponent comes forward, and we get 1/2 x. When you subtract whole number 1 from 1/2, you get negative 1/2. So that's the derivative of the bottom. And I multiply that times the top. And all over the bottom squared. Okay, so calculus is done. Now we have our algebra 1. So the cleanup's going to go like this. I'm going to distribute that, and then I have to distribute to 3 places over here. Okay, so keep in mind when you're multiplying, so I have 2x times x to the 1/2. This is really x to the first times x to the 1/2 power. When you're multiplying two x's, you add exponents. So that gives you 2x to the 1 plus 1/2 is 1.5, which is 3/2. So I have 2x to the 3/2 plus 8x to the 1/2 power. So that distributing is done. All right. Then over here, really, by the way, what you're distributing is a negative. That negative needs to go along with it. So you're distributing negative 1/2 x to the 1/2. When I multiply it times x squared, you're adding exponents. All right. So I have negative 1/2 exponent. I use green. Negative 1/2 exponent plus 2. That gives you negative 1/2 plus whole number 2 gives you 1.5, which is 3/2. Okay, and then I have this negative 1/2 coefficient in front. So that's minus 1/2 x to the 3/2. Then I take this thing and I distribute it to the 8x to the first. Negative 1/2 times x to the first. When I add negative 1/2 plus 1, I get x to the 1/2. Negative 1/2 times 8 is negative 4. So that's minus 4x to the 1/2 power. And then I have 1/2 times this whole number 3. So that gives me minus 3/2 x to the negative 1/2 power. That's my numerator. On the denominator, when you are taking a power to a power, you multiply exponents. 1/2 times 2 gives you 1. So that's just x to the first. So we just have an x on the bottom. All right, let's scoot everything up. Okay, so I can combine things on top, right? I have 2x to the 3/2 power and a negative 1x to the 3/2 power. Not negative 1, negative 1/2. 2 minus 1/2 gives me 1.5, which is 3/2. So that's 3/2 x to the 3/2 power. Then it looks like, what else do I have? So I have 8x to the 1/2 minus 4x to the 1/2. So that gives me plus 4x to the 1/2. And then I just tack on this last negative 3/2 x to the negative 1/2 power. All of that is being divided by x. So the next thing, if you're looking at my solution sheet, when you divide that bar means you're dividing everything by x. You're distributing the division, in other words. So that's the step that you see on that review sheet. That's just me separating that into 3 individual fractions. I'm just showing the division. So that means divide the first term by x, divide the second term by x, and divide the third term by x. I think this is what I did on the review sheet. I hope so. And then simplify. So well, now I wish I had it in front of me because I don't want to do it. Hold on. Okay, good. I'm doing it the same way. All right, I got to scoot everybody up. Okay, when you are dividing, you subtract exponents. So remember, this is x to the first underneath here. So x to the 3/2 divided by x to the first. Remember, that's a whole number 1, so it's really 2 over 2. 3 halves minus 2 halves is 1 half. Okay, so I get 3 halves x to the 1 half power. That's the first one. All right, this next fraction, 4 is oh my gosh, my dogs. And I'm back again. Sometimes my dogs like to get into the trash. And so we had that going on, which is nice. All right, so we're subtracting exponents. 1 half minus a whole number 1, which is 2 halves. 1 halves minus 2 halves is negative a half. So I have 4x to the negative 1 half power. And then this last one, yours taking, you have negative 1 half for an exponent, minus whole number 1, which is 2 halves, negative 1 half, so I'll do it off to the side, minus 2 halves gives you negative 3 halves. So I have minus, the coefficient stays, minus 3 halves x to the negative 3 halves power. And then the last thing I did, since they gave you the problem using a radical, you should technically rewrite it using a radical. So the first expression, there's my x to the 1 half power. It's just square root of x. The second one, that square root of x now is underneath the fraction bar because my exponent is negative. The 4 should not be under the fraction bar. It's just a whole number 4. It does not have a negative exponent. And then the last one, that x belongs under the fraction bar. This is the part that might have been tricky for you. X to the 3 halves power really means this. It means the square root of x cubed. But the square root of x cubed, if you think about it, we've talked about this in class, we showed it. X cubed means x times x times x. Well, the square root of these two is x. Square root of x squared is x. So I can do the square root of that. That's just whole number x. And then I have 1x left inside. So that's why that x to the negative 3 halves power was written like 2x square root of x. It had to go under a fraction bar because it's negative. Okay, so that is your final answer for your derivative. If this question was on a test, where do you get full credit? I don't know. You could have had full credit here, I suppose, although that's kind of messy. But I would say you need to go that far, okay, because you need to simplify, although it doesn't look that simple, but it's a whole lot simpler than what we have up here in blue. All right, that's it.